Welcome everyone to another episode of Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case for. And I'm Kirk Buckner along with Vinny Lospinuso. And I personally run NotInHallOfFame.com along with Evan Nolan and the Fictitious Athlete Hall of Fame, the Fictitious Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and the United States Athletics Hall of Fame. Big news coming about that in late February or early March. And one of the people part of that is my favorite sports historian, Vinny Lospinuso. How you doing?
Doing good, and I hope you having a good one too.
Well, we're doing someone that I was really excited because you sent me three names. We're gonna do one right now, and they're all very big names on the Not in Hall of Fame football list. People who I personally think should be in the Pro Football Hall of Fame, and who a lot of other people, based on votes that have accumulated, agree with. And we're going to go way back in the time machine here for this one. And someone who, despite the fact he played in the 1930s, here we are 90 years later and is getting a lot more Hall of Fame attention than he's ever gotten.
Yeah, he's one of my most wanted guys for the Hall of Fame.
Ox Emerson.
Yep, Ox Emerson. In my opinion, even though the Lions lost in the NFC Championship game, I still think with Buddy Parker making the Hall of Fame very soon, which I'm very happy for it. In my opinion, that's their real Super Bowl. I know Lions fans. Don't worry. I'm with you. I don't care. I'm a Falcons fan. But I want to give a highlight to a person that was part of your first ever championship in 1935. Ox Emerson, well, Grover Emerson. His nickname was Ox because that guy was a bull on offense, defense, special teams. He was a motor, that guy.
Yeah, I mean, like when you look at the accolades, Vinny touched on it right away. 1935 championship, but a big part of that. And when we look at these old-time guys, especially before 1950, 1960, we're looking at players who went both ways, offense and defense. All-decade player, but 5 years in a row, first team all
6 times.
6?
6 times. 6 times in a row.
Oh, I thought it was 5. Okay.
Out of everyone from the 1930s All-Decade team, he has by far the most All-Pros to his name.
Okay.
Out of the guys not in yet.
I stand corrected again. But there's a few things that when I was looking through all of this that I was like super impressed with. I was reading an article by John Turney for this. I think this sums it up. So he was the top blocker on the 1936 team that had 2,885 rushing yards. That was a record until 1972. And let's remember, that was a 12 game.
Yeah, Ox Emerson, like, even though I have my own personal beef with John Turney aside, that is important, a distinction to have. Those Lions teams were very effective on the run with Dutch Clark, but Dutch Clark would not be able to be the player he was as a 100th anniversary team player if Ox Emerson was not there as the interior lineman. Like, you could make a real argument that the MVP of those Lions team, which, by the way, he started out making $75 a game when they were known as the Portsmouth Spartans in Ohio until George Richards moved them to Detroit, of course. And he was their best player on the line still, because I think they were perfect when he played, and when they didn't play, they had a way less games. Like, you think of like a guy with like wins above replacements, he'd be massively high in terms of interior linemen.
And we haven't even talked about all his defense too. I mean, in the same article, so 1934, 7 shutouts.
7 shutouts, all because of him. Like, he was the main reason behind it, because he was someone that was a great blocker, great tackler, He can do anything for you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what more they want. In 2020, Emerson was named as one of the Centennial class. And for those wondering what that is, that was obviously the 100th year anniversary.
My
And
favorite class, but for different
mine
reasons.
too. Mine too, yeah. And that's when the NFL said, okay, we're going to try and do something to help out, to help clear the load.
Yeah.
So, well, something.
You know, they
I
kind
should
of
say the Pro Football
there's
thing.
there's so many for seniors and of course
It's something.
non-players.
It's something.
Yes, that is true. It is something. We got Steve Sable out of it. We got Duke Slater. We got Ed Sprinkle, Bobby
Slater was your
Dillon.
number one, so let's not forget that there. But
Yeah, Slater was I was a
I
big
know you were you were. If you were to rename yourself Duke Slater, I would believe it. That's how big
well,
you were on that.
yeah, like for those that don't realize, before I started this whole series, when I first started with Kirk, like he knew I was most
Mhm.
biggest for Duke Slater, and I'm actually pushing for him behind the scenes for the Chicago Hall of Fame for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
And you know, he should also be in the Cardinals regard. But besides that, you look at Emerson's entire career, you look at 6 consecutive first team all pros. The same in terms of Lions players, that's the same number as Barry Sanders, Lou Creekmer, Dutch Clark, and Jack Christensen. All of them in the Hall of Fame except for Ox Emerson.
why do you think he got forgotten?
I think it's because of, like, just an example of when they were going from like the 60s, all like the Super Bowl emphasis was much higher. Not as many people did as much research back in those days. There was much more apathy for people beyond there. The Lions, people didn't really think of the time for them in the 30s. They were thinking more like the 50s Lions, even more so. So
Fair.
it's just that in many other instances where these pre-Super Bowl guys, forget the pre-NFL guys, that's a different story, but just the pre-Super Bowl guys got forgotten by so many people. Now, I'm the person who believes, well, they are not forgotten. You just fail to do research on them. And I do believe I'd be correct on that. But it is true the fact that just the general consensus of people, when they think of the Lions, they're not thinking of Joe Schmidt or Dutch Clark or Jack Christensen. They're just thinking Barry Sanders and they're just thinking of Barry Sanders and Calvin Johnson. They're definitely not thinking Ox Emerson.
Mhm. Saying that though, well, two more thoughts here, if I could. Uh, Detroit. I mean, again, you referenced as we're recording this. This is the day after the NFC Championship, where Detroit failed to advance. Having said that, it's great for. I think you and I, as well, I'm a Saints fan. You're nonpartisan, which is well, yeah, I guess
Well,
sure. You
I'm,
described
I'm,
yourself as
I'm
a
a fan of
Falcons
any
fan
team.
now.
And I'm a fan of, if I'm a fan of any team, it's the Falcons, but I'm much more
Right.
nonpartisan.
Right. Okay. But yeah, you're more nonpartisan than I am by
Yes.
a large part. Uh,
Yes.
I would think we haven't talked about this, but I would imagine knowing you the way I do, you were probably cheering for Detroit.
Yeah, I was, but I kind of also wasn't.
Really?
I'm still kind of mixed with Shanahan, even though he's the reason why Ryan has a case in the first place, I'd argue. Um, but I also know that if the Lions were to go to, I know for a fact you would have seen some people say, "Oh, Goff has a Hall of Fame case now." I'm like, no, he doesn't. Like, if you're pushing for guys for Detroit that should be in on the offensive side, especially, like not not Jared Goff, like Ox
Okay.
Emerson. Ox Emerson
But
is
I guess
wishes.
sure. But where I'm going with this, Detroit's success makes people look at who they were a little bit more. Emerson
Yes.
was a semifinalist in 2023 in the seniors category. So
Yeah, he was, if I recall. He was one of the things there. I think him and Dilwig both missed out, which was disappointing, but we did get Charlie Connery and Al Wisser, so that's pretty good. And you know, not only that, speaking of those same lines, like I said, Buddy Parker finally making the
right,
Hall of
but
Fame very soon.
I guess what I'm saying is there's more momentum now, which is crazy. Like
Yeah,
less
surreal.
like over 85 years after he played than there ever was. For what it's worth, Vinny and I are also part of another group, the Pro Football Hall of Fame Revisited Project. where we act as if the Pro Football Hall of Fame began in 1946. So 25 years, and I know, wait, you're saying 26. Well, the ceremony is always the year after.
Yes.
We've already inducted Emerson. We're in 1955 as we're recording this. So
Yeah,
Emerson's
we've already inducted Emerson.
our fifth or sixth class, I don't recall. And that's sort of where we've got our group of historians and fans looking at that. And if you think that you belong as one of those, if you want to be a part of that, and we've added people along the way, by all means, please be a part of that and ask Vinny or myself. We're happy to have you. Emerson feels like a perfect example of why they waited too long to start the hall. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah.
Like this
You
just
know,
seems
he's
like
you know, you're right. You're right completely. Like a guy like an Emerson, if the hall opened up earlier, I guarantee you someone like an Emerson or a Dilberg or whatnot would already be in.
both of them.
And if it was open even beforehand, I guarantee you my pet guys like Brawlier and Heffelfinger would have been there too.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but in terms of just like the pre Super Bowl guys, oh yeah, Emerson fits that bill, Dilweg fits that bill, Llewellyn, maybe Houghton a little bit, even though he was sort of like a tweener a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Who else is Wistert, of course. Wistert's an obvious one as well. Yeah, there's several names. Emerson's just in terms of the 30s alone, he's the poster child of that. Like look at the other guys on the 30th anniversary team. No one has as many all pros as Emerson. No one was as awarded as much as Emerson on there. Yeah, he's the best one of the
Is
30s all decades team.
there a player right now who is part of the all decade 30s team that's not in? I mean,
Oh
if it,
yeah, there's 10. Yeah, there's 10 of them.
oh, there's
There,
10. Oh, wow.
yeah, there's 10. The names, including Emerson. There's Isbell, who was named as a semifinalist himself, which I'm rooting for him, of course. Beatty Feathers, who a Bear, and also a NFL Dodger. Gainell Tinsley, Cardinal. George Christensen, another
Mhm.
Spartan slash liner, also played the same number of years as him. Christensen also has a case, they say. I think he probably does. Bill Lee, and Frank Cope. Cope has an interesting case, but I'm not sure about him.
Hmm.
You could also Buckets Goldenberg. He was a member of the Packers from the 30s to the 40s. He's in the he's I don't know if he's in the Jewish Hall of Fame. Maybe I can try to get him into that.
The
And then you
Jewish
also have
Hall of Fame, you mean?
Yes, there is. It's in Comac, actually, right, not too far from here. And then
Ah,
George Svenson for the
okay.
Packers. So a lot of Lions, a lot of Packers,
Okay.
makes sense, and a lot of Bears and
Well, Max on
Cardinals
Long
because
Island.
those.
I'm sorry, I've never heard of that. Oh, I haven't.
What?
Comac, is that on Long Island or?
Yeah, Comac's on Long Island.
Okay. Oh, I've never been.
Comac's a big Jewish population over there.
I have never been to Long Island. Maybe one day.
Yes, the Long Island is very different from New York City. Like, granted, we're part of the tri-state area, but it's a very different culture from the five boroughs. It's more
Right.
conservative. It's more, I guess, segregated in certain areas.
Mhm.
There's some more like rural area down out east, and then you go further in, there's a cluster of like Jewish, there's a Hispanic in like more southern areas. There is also a lot. It's a huge bashing pot, a huge melting pot of societies, but also it's more so like it's a whole thing. Nassau and Suffolk County, those are the main two counties. It looks like a fish, Long Island.
Nice. Last question, I guess, before we move on. Uh, so is Emerson far higher than Isbell for you in this group?
Oh and I think very highly
You're
of
big in
Cecil
Isbell.
Isbell.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I mean,
Yeah.
I haven't made a case of him yet, like Llewellyn and Dilweg, but you'll eventually see a case for Isbell.
Oh,
He's the only one of them which is a quarterback in terms of the main all decade team's not in, but Emerson has more all pros, was more dominant at his position, affected wins and losses far more.
mhm.
And I think just in general, like when you're looking at guys from the 30s in particular, I don't see anyone more deserving than Emerson. Like
Okay.
the holy trinity that PFRA has for three Super Bowl guys is Laverne Dilwick for the 20s, uh, Ox Emerson for the 30s, and Al Wistert for the 40s. and they don't have anyone from the 50s. I'll make someone. I'll make a couple cases from there
I
to
know
make it
you
fair.
will. I'm counting on it. Okay,
Yeah.
well, Vin, thank you so much for that. Look for more from Vinny on the Vinny Makes the Hall of Fame Case for. Look for other shows here in the Bucknerverse. A lot of things that I do with Evan Nolan, where we're doing the weekly Hall of Fame show. We have been doing a pile of interviews, actually a lot because of Vinny Lospinuso, who's been very kind to sort of introduce me to some phenomenal people who are representing different fan bases or have great Hall of Fame cases for. We were just talking before. Look for another great one that I just did with the daughter of Earl Monroe that Vinny set up, Maya Monroe. And amazingly, Maya and I didn't necessarily talk about her dad. We talked about all the phenomenal things that she did through being a basketball player and using sports to help out underprivileged people, not just in Brooklyn or Harlem, where that's part of her roots, but around the world, and why Ghana is a special place for her. Uh, Maya is an incredible person. I'm blessed that I've gotten to sort of talk to her. And Vinny, thanks for that.
Anytime.
Yeah, I'm looking
Anytime,
forward
Kirk.
to when that one goes up because uh, it's one of those cases where when you talk to somebody and you just sort of like feel better
Oh yeah.
afterwards. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah. Like
Yeah.
I have nothing but positive things to say about Maya. She's
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And that might be one of my favorite interviews I've done. No disrespect to some of the other ones that I've done because they've all been great, but that one I've really enjoyed because I just feel a bit of a connection for what she's trying to do. And hopefully I was able to connect her with a couple people that I know. But anyway, wherever you are, wherever you may be, make it a great day because it's not coming again. Take care, everybody.